Thank you. First and foremost, I'd like to acknowledge the first people of this country, past, present and future. And I'd like to congratulate the new association of fluoride-free Northern Rivers. I'm actually the secretary from the Ballina Fluoridation-Free Network. Even though we're known as Ballina Fluoridation-Free Network, we've actually worked extensively throughout the Northern Rivers supporting Byron Bay, Lismore. And we've been a part of this from the very beginning since 2005. And I don't know if any of you remember, but the community consultation that started out in this area was called the WRI research paper, which was a telephone survey which contacted 500 people in all shires, that's Byron, Lismore, Richmond Valley and Ballina, of 500 people. And they said that 64% of those people were in favour of fluoride. When we looked closer into this research document, we found that most of the people that were rung up between 4 and 6 p.m, and most of them were pensioners with little grandchildren, and the questions were loaded. Vanessa actually went out in the street, very shortly after that and gathered 800 signatures in half an hour outside Noah's Ark Bookshop to disprove that whole survey. Yet that is really the only community consultation that's ever taken place in this area. Under the Code of Practice, under Section 4111 at the time, there was meant to be, the Code of Practice is actually the document which is like the specifications for how you go about fluoridating a community and the specifications of the plants and the product. It was under Section 4111 where it said that community consultation had to take place, and the Department of Health interpreted that as community consultation with health professionals. So that's as far as that got. However, during Al's court case, the hero of Northern Rivers, by the way, Ballina Fluoridation-Free, along with many different networks around Australia, we fundraised for Al, and we probably put in about $30,000 to $40,000 in fundraising towards this. It's actually been the most profound action that anyone in this whole country has ever taken. So under the code, going back to the Code of Practice, also under the Code of Practice, the Section 723, if I remember correctly, has to comply to the EP&A Act, which means that they have to prove absolutely that no harm will be done to the environment, and under environment that includes human beings. So when Al first took the initial action to court, Judge Biscoe actually ruled in his favour and actually said that that does apply to Section 111 and 112 of the EP&A Act. So that ruling with Judge Biscoe has never been challenged, and it still stands. However, it hasn't been overruled, but they have dismissed that particular judgment. But it can still work in your favour because it still stands, doesn't it? Yeah, it still stands. So okay, so under that, under the code, what happened also during that court case under section the community consultation, they in 2008 or 2011, or they actually changed the Code of Practice and they removed the community consultation. So that's how desperate they can be, and they can change it at a drop of a hat. So, okay, so the other part of the Code of Practice is the product. So if you go to, you can actually find the Code of Practice if you look up the internet, Code of Practice New South Wales. I think the latest one is Code of Practice 2011. And in there they actually talk about the product, and they specifically state, I think it's under section 8.2, that the product is never consistent. They actually acknowledge the fact that this product is never consistent. Every single batch is different. And if I put some brochures out there from Radox, who are the suppliers of the fluoride, And they actually, if you look very carefully at the bottom of those 3 pages, there's actually a disclaimer that the people who are supplying the product take no responsibility for it, and that it's up to the people who are using the product to test that product. Now, when Rouse Water actually were voting for this, Keith Johnson actually put up a motion to say that they should, you know, test it more regularly and all that sort of stuff. And that was actually passed. And Vanessa can probably tell you a bit more about that. Okay, so fluoridation is not a council policy, it's not a state policy, it's actually a federal policy. And the National Dental Plan had an objective, the National Dental Plan of 2013. Yeah, 2013, their goal actually was to have every town fluoridated who had a minimum of 1,000 people. So it's a federal policy, and the feds actually pass it on to the state, and then some part of the state pass it on to the councils. So the people who are actually the instigators of this whole policy are the NHMRC, who actually direct the Department of Health.
They use their recommendation.
Yeah, that's right. So the NHMRC are a body of people who will examine all the reports and research and then decide that this is safe or not safe, and then they recommend it to the Department of Health. So what we did since 2000, for 8 years basically, we still hold something like 4,000 signatures for the whole area. We have submitted that time and time again to Ballina Council and to Rouse Water. Sadly, the petition really doesn't have that much impact. I don't mean to be negative about this, but as Marilyn was saying, in order to be able to really stop this, I think we have to reach up a lot higher. And we could see what actually happened with Al's case, and I would actually hate ever again to see Al put in a position where he has been a sole plaintiff. I'm really pleased that fluoride-free Northern Rivers have actually become a formal association to protect them and the members in their committee who would possibly be able to take this further as a legal challenge. The people down at Eurobodalla had the latest legal challenge, and they were actually challenging Bisco's ruling. The judgment in that ruling was that the judge decided that the Bisco ruling didn't apply to fluoridation. So you can see how easily a legality which is legitimate by one judge is dismissed by another. So the My Will letters, I mean, the My Will letters have been going around for years and years, but we've never had a big enough body to actually be able to make them effective. I think you need something like 51% of the population to actually have them affected, and I know be effective. And I know that in Queensland they were going door knocking and getting people to sign all these sort of things, but then eventually it fizzled out. And I think one of the biggest problems in this country is because we're so big. And like we've tried that many times to unite networks all around Australia in one body so that we could be a force to say, look, we're not happy with this, we don't want it anymore. But it's never actually happened, which is very, very sad. And I think someone, Jeff actually said, someone actually just said recently, where are all the people standing up against fluoridation? Well, we've said that for years, it's such a big issue. But I think what Al actually did is a really big window to actually see what you're up against. I mean, this is not a democratic system by any means whatsoever. And I think by the possibility of finding a loophole in the Constitution and finding quite a eccentric senior counsel who knows the ins and outs of the constitutional law and particularly civil conscription, and there's been many interpretations of that particular part of the Constitution, and I think that needs to, the scope of that needs to be absolutely explored. It sounds a bit, what else have we got here? I mean, the other challenge, of course, is the fact that this has been happening in this country for 50 or 60 years and everyone's gone to sleep at the wheel. And the biggest thing is, to, you know, for a community, you need to take the people with you. If you don't have the people, then, you know, there's, you know, people, like I remember listening to a solicitor speaking, and he was talking about different stages of activism, you know, and by the time he's started getting to rally, let's have a rally and walk through the streets, or let's have a demonstration, he said that that's way down the track, because in order to do something and to have the impact of something like that, you have to have the people. I mean, you can't march down the street with 5 people and think you're going to have a reaction from the council or from the Department of Health, and they're going to go, oh, wow, these people have really got something to say. We had a fantastic MP in South Australia called Anne Bressington. She's an independent, very conspiracy orientated, I suppose, spoke her mind in Parliament many, many times, and she instigated an idea of everybody joining Facebook, and by the time the next election came, which is already gone, we've got beloved Tony running the country, that if there was enough people, we could actually control a block of the vote. But of course, that petered out. You know, this is the horror of this whole scenario with fluoridation, that try as we might, eventually, sadly, it does peter out. The momentum isn't there because we've lived with it for so long. But I do personally believe that there is a way through this, and I think it does have to be done through the High Court, and I do believe, so that it affects the nation. You know, it's not something that, you know, you go from one councillor to the next council, the council changes, I want fluoride, now we don't, you know. But the thing is, when the tap's turned on according to the Fluoridation Act, you know, you can't, unless you actually, you have to apply to the Governor-General to say, oh, can we turn it off? Well, they're not going to turn it off once they got it. They think, oh, gotcha. You know, you're not going to get away with that. Yeah, so I mean, we flew Paul Connett out here from America for our court case, and the barristers from the senior counsels from the other side called a voir dire, which made him a prejudicial witness because they discovered an email that he was encouraging communities to get behind our. So, you know, I mean, people here know who Paul Connett is. I mean, he's dedicated his whole life to this whole campaign, and I mean, we were quite shattered when that happened. But, so I think, first of all, I mean, it's great that you get petitions, it gets people involved, but the sad part about it is that really the impact is not big enough, unless, I think you have to have 10,000 signatures sitting in Parliament for them to even bring the motion up. Oh, the other thing also is the Greens around here are very anti-fluoride, but the Greens as a party sit on the fence. They will not make a decision. We've written to them several times, Marilyn, myself and lots of people around the country, but they won't make a choice one way or the other. And it's different here because the Greens do understand what it's all about, but I don't even know if look, we don't have a Bill of Rights to begin with. I mean, if we had a Bill of Rights, there might be some hope, but as far as legislation is concerned, Al might win his court case one day, tomorrow they'll put up a law to make sure that he can't win again, you know, and that's what you're up against, you know. So, I mean, with a High Court, you've got 7 judges, you have to be able to present different types of argument where you'll have different forms of opinion, but you may just be able to bring it home to say that this is not a democratic process, that it goes against our human rights. And the place where it goes against our human rights is with the United Nations, and the United Nations actually specifically state that it's everybody's human right to have clean drinking water.